Hello there, and welcome back to this channel that we're trying to keep alive. This is Dork Dad Adrian, and I just finished a particular book about a week ago, Heir to the Empire, Star Wars, for the first time. And I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt, and I just finished it, and I thought, we talk about nerdy things on this channel. Star Wars books is one of them. Sam has done one or two reviews, so I just thought, as I'm going through this series for the first time, that everyone raves about, I might as well make a little series myself. You can call this Into the EU, at least for me, episode 1. But we're going to go through this. Now, this is not going to be a story recap because I'm not going to remember every single thing I read, but I'm glad I read it. And I'm going to tell you about it and give my little review. First of all, 5-star review. The story was amazing. But let's back up. So I discovered this book because Sam and everybody out there, and I guess after watching Rebels, you had Thrawn in there as a character, but everyone raves about you got to read the Thrawn Trilogy, right? You got to read them. So I was like, okay. And wandering around a used bookstore, shout out Chamlin's Book Mine, I found this. This is actually, I think this is first edition hardcover. Funny story. I went and got this, and then the other two were in there, but I didn't buy them. But then I bought this, and I stressed out. I was like, oh no, I left them there. I need to go get them. I went back. Luckily, they're still there, and I'm in the middle of reading the second one. But like I said, Sam raved about this. Everybody in Star Wars that reads the EU raves about it. So I was like, all right, let me actually read it. And I pushed myself to finish this. I don't really know the time frame, but like I said, I finished it last week. So what is this actually about? All right. It is set 5 years after the events in episode 6, which is funny because so does The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, but you have Luke Skywalker. He's hearing some things from somebody. You have all the main characters, Han and Leia, right? Things aren't peachy keen because they're trying to set up the new Republic and also keep the Empire that's still running around at bay. And then you have Thrawn introduced, which, again, I saw in Rebels, but I guess now this would be an older Thrawn in this story. But he's the Grand Admiral running around after they thought they had gotten rid of them all, but they didn't. And he's around getting help from a Jedi named Jairus Kabouth. haven't had to say these names out loud, but they're not really sure about him. Spoilers, turns out to be not the original Jedi. He's a clone. But he wants Luke and Han and Leia's children. They're having twins, but they're not born yet. She's pregnant. But he wants them to have more Jedi and have power. You also have Mara Jade in here, which, again, everybody's raved about. So far in this book, like I said, this is the first time reading it. She's a bit of a jerk, but actually she had a very shocking background, which I'll go into later. There are other characters in here. You have, the main ones, R2, 3PO, Chewie, Lando's in there. And it's just been nice to read them again, right? It's kind of like we kind of left them in episode 6, and then they kind of drug them all back into episodes 7, 8, 9. I'll get to that later. But as far as my thoughts about the book, Thrawn, calls the Thrawn Trilogy, even though it's not actually called that. This is Heir to the Empire, but it is talking about him. I think he's an amazing villain, and he's just like very cool and calculating. Doesn't get upset a lot, which is actually what you want. You want someone fearful, and every time the good guy is trying to have a plan, they cut to him, and he kind of already knows what their plan is. It's actually very scary, but it's very awesome too. I will say good for Disney for introducing younger Thrawn in Rebels, and I guess now in Ahsoka, but they kept him with the same vibe, energy in those, and also good for them for using the voice actor as the live actor. But man, it's scary to have a very cool and calculating villain, and for whatever you say about Disney, they've actually kept that from the book series. I'm reading this first one. I know there's another trilogy of Thrawn, but I'll get to that later. Anyway, with everybody else, like I said, with Han and Leia, there's some drama happening in the New Republic because life isn't all peachy keen. I guess how else do you make a story? But it's like, life isn't happily ever after. And it's interesting to see that, when you're setting up a new government, drama is going to happen. Luke is kind of bothered by voices. It's kind of sad. In the beginning, he's saying goodbye to Obi-Wan for the last time. But he keeps getting these tugs from the Force, like these mental, he's getting some visions. He actually goes to Dagobah again, which is kind of sad because Yoda's house isn't even there, but he goes into the same place where he saw Vader, and he has another vision, but of the past and what could have been, and he keeps seeing this woman in his vision, and he keeps hearing a voice, and it actually turns out to be that other Jedi guy, Jarrus, right? So that's kind of just a recap. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but read the book. It's totally worth it. What I liked about it is that if you're existing in the year 2026, you know that the sequel trilogy already came out with Star Wars. I don't think they use the original characters as well as they could. I know it's like adding a lot of characters while trying to establish new ones. And they also just didn't use them the way I think people were expecting, right? You had Luke, who was a hermit. You had Han Solo that basically scrubbed him and sent him back to being a smuggler guy just because Kylo left. And in real life, the actors were just older, right? Unfortunately, Carrie Fisher passed away after the second one, and they just had to kind of make something happen in the third. And then, aside from the hallway scene that we all know and love from The Mandalorian with Luke, we haven't seen a live-action Jedi Master Luke yet. I guess, like in Episode 6, he was kind of building up speed, but you would have to go to the books to see him kind of putting it all together. And he has this instances, even though he doubts himself, where he's like training and time blurs because his lightsaber skills are so fast, or he makes easy work of bad guys. So it's like finally the hero that we wanted, even though it didn't happen at Episode 7, is there in the books. So 5 out of 5 book. And another prompt I have here is, what did I not like about it? There's nothing about the book I didn't like, but there's things in the real world that I'm sad about. I'm sad that Disney didn't do anything with this material. They actually scrubbed the EU before they went into Episode 7, 8, 9. I thought, I hadn't read any of it at this time, but I was like, oh, well, they must be doing something big then. Didn't really happen. And it's just, we got what we got. They introduced new characters, but then they tried to have the old characters, and it's just the passing of the torch wasn't enough. You know what I mean? Like, Luke was kind of still there. Rey could have been more detailed. Kylo, Adam Driver was a good actor, but it was just trying to balance too much, right? I thought. So sad about that this wasn't used by Disney. But I'm also sad, number 2, is that Lucasfilm, whatever, didn't really do anything with this as far as a film. Now, I understand you fit a lot more into a book than you can a movie, but I heard that there was a lull in Disney interest until this book series came out. So you're talking about 83 to 91. Nothing really was really happening. They could have made this into a movie fresh off the heels of, not too soon, but after Episode 6. But again, it would have been hard because it's a book. There's more content. And I guess by the time the third one came out, a few years later, the prequel trilogy came out. So that kind of was just like, okay, well, the actors were older. Maybe they could have kind of faked it in the early 90s, their ages, but it is what it is. Nothing never happened as far as a movie. And point number 3 for what I don't like, quote unquote, don't like, is that the story is trapped in a book, right? It's readily available for anyone that wants to go out and read it. But most people are just not going to read the book, right? I would say you should do yourself a service and read this, but it takes a lot more to sit down and read this in a month, or if you want to blaze through it a week or two. But most people would just rather watch a show or a movie. I don't know who's to blame there, because you have an amazing book, but then you have the world that doesn't feel like reading. It is what it is, but what are you gonna do? So, for all my people out there, all my Star Wars nerds, right? If you're an EU fan, you've probably read this already. If you are a Star Wars fan, you need to read this, okay? Because if you like the sequel trilogy, whatever. If you didn't, this is the redemption of what you want to have happen. You got all the, see, you're even on the cover. You got all the original characters. You have a new villain, okay? That's menacing. You've already seen him in Rebels and Ahsoka. So do yourself a favor and read this book, okay? This is the sequel trilogy you've always wanted, so go in there and get it. That's it. That's my review. I'm going to try to read the second book in this series as fast as I can and do another review. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. If you're still subscribed to this channel, I find that very amazing. So thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next review, and we'll cover movies and trailers and stuff as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.